What's up, YouTube? I want to make a video on how to choose a cologne. And first of all, one of the most important things you want to do with a cologne is you got to understand the way it smells on the test strip and the way it smells in your body couldn't be totally different. Like a scent with a lot of very sour notes is not going to may smell way too sour when it's on somebody's body if they have a lot of acid in their skin. And at the same time, if you sweat too much or it all has an effect. So the first way to choose a cologne is you narrow it down. Like if you like this stuff on the test strips, you might want to spray it on your wrist, and then you walk around and let it dry down. And definitely like 8 hours later, you want to smell your wrist and see if you can still notice it. Because a lot of the scents are designed to smell great on the strips, but then when you put it on your chemistry, you realize it's designed to make a quick sale. And a lot of colognes borrow from each other, and they're always copying each other, and they're always basically changing a handful of notes, but they all have the same stuff pretty much in the dry down. And so one of the best colognes is Gendarme, because Gendarme doesn't necessarily smell good in the test strip, but it smells good on skin. And it's designed to give you a good hour after hour of a great dry down. So it's a good comfort scent to wear. And like LL Cool J has the money. He could be buying any cologne. He could be buying Creed. He could be wearing that $50,000 stuff that Mike Tyson wears. But this is what he chooses because it works so well on people. And it's a great cologne. At the same time, like Zeno Davidoff and Roach's Man and Angel Men and Jupe and a lot of the Escadas, they're designed to dry down into a very nice scent when you give them a few hours to work. And so then you have at least 8 to 24 hours of great use out of it, even if it may not smell that good at first. And that's the thing with the Oriental scents, is that they're known for their dry downs, whereas the fresh citrus and fruity ones and the aquatics tend to be fairly linear in a lot of cases. And another thing too is, like when you smell the test strip, you don't want to automatically just impulse buy. They're always designing it to make a quick sale. And that's one thing. You can spend a lot of money and have something just like anything else you have. So one of the best things to do is just look at what you got. Okay, if you got like all the Cool Waters and Acqua di Gio and you got Issey Miyake and all the aquatics, you might not want to get another aquatic. You might, or if you have Unforgivable Black, you might not want to buy multi-platinum. Because chances are you'll probably get sick of that smell after a while. So it's better off, you get maybe bottled Jupe, it's got that cinnamon and vanilla and patchouli, kind of exotic dry down, and then you have maybe some Escadas that have more of a mysterious, leathery, musky dry down, which is really nice. Most of the leather and musk scents aren't that good, but these guys know what they're doing. And it's good to basically have a lot of different stuff. So, you have an assortment of scents. Like you always want to have some nighttime scents that are kind of but one of the things I look for is like leather and tobacco can quickly overpower scent, and sometimes they can become unpleasant. Like nobody wants to smell smoke, but some tobacco is really good, like with the Gucci's. Musk, same way. It can overpower a scent and it can smell like a cheap body spray. Like you wouldn't want to buy a musky, woodsy kind of dry scent from a drugstore. Would kind of smell like somebody's grandfather. Whereas, if you got like a Gucci, they would make it work. And at the same time, like a lot of times amber and tonkamine and lavender and a lot of that stuff can quickly make a scent pungent and too sweet. And then it can become off-putting to some people. And in those cases, like you got to look at it practically. Like if you're working all the time and you want to wear something to work, for hygiene, you don't want to be wearing something that's going to have several feet of silage because somebody might become offended by it. And at the same time, if you're always going to parties and stuff and you want something that's really hip, you want something that has a little bit of silage to it. But you want to look at art. Like you want to look at the best colognes ever made. And you want to go out with a bang. And you want to just go ahead and find something that smells amazing. And the best way to do that is, you narrow it down to just like Roach's Man's really good. Issey Miyake's really good. The Gucci's are really good. The Escadas are really good. And Zeno Davidoff is really good. And also, another really good scent is Perry Ellis 360 Red. Like, it is a better version of Acqua di Gio, and it's much cheaper, and it has some spicy notes too. So they took that scent and they built onto it and actually made a better version. You know, what you got to understand too is every scent company has its successes and its failures. And sometimes even a good high-end company can hire a perfumer to make something that he's just not experienced making. Like if a guy's used to making aquatic scents and then all of a sudden he's making a woodsy scent, or if you get like Jean-Paul Gaultier and all of a sudden he's making a short-lasting fresh scent, you know, he's probably not going to have the same, if he has the same perfumers making something they're just not as experienced making, it may not come out as well as someone else. So you want to look for the absolute best scents that you can find. Like with the polos, you know, the polo green is kind of a mossy, woodsy 80s scent, and it's kind of passe. You know, it's like it was made in the 70s, but it's quite overpowering, and a lot of people aren't going to like it. Whereas, you know, in Polo Double Black, that is a good scent. It has kind of a woodsy, very masculine dry down with mango and different melon kinds of notes. And it has some sweetness, but it's a very nice, sophisticated, masculine kind of scent. And the Polo Blue, again, now this is where, like, now just because the scent's a high-end scent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to last. Like Polo Blue, on the other hand, it has great scent, but it doesn't always last very well at all. It's very subtle, and so you'd have to wear a lot of it to get lasting power. And so, you know, one of the things you need to do when you're looking at scents is you let the scents come to you. Like if you're working with somebody that smells great, ask them what kind of cologne it is. You know, and then go find it and try it on your skin and see if it works with you. And if it works, then you want to buy that. You know, you want to let it come to you. Like I was always thinking about these department store scents, and then I walked into a cologne store at the mall and found all these bottles that I had never heard of, like Paris Black and Exceed and all these, you know, all these different names, right? All these different companies. But the thing is, they're European companies that make scents longer lasting and better smelling than the Americans do. You know, they have a lot more background in this, and basically, you know, the scent, I looked online at like Fragrance House and ljshopping.net, and it was so much cheaper. You get a 3-ounce bottle for like $10 to $20, which is absolutely the best deal in the world. And like a lot of those scents are designed to work better with your chemistry. Like a lot of the American scents tend to be lighter. A lot of the European scents tend to be stronger and better lasting, and they have more oil and they are better made. But with that said, you know, there's always going to be some failures. You always want to test stuff in your skin. And you always want to talk to the person at the scent. You want to go into like a scent store and talk to them about what you want. And let them show you something. And, you know, with a cologne, always be able to, you know, even tell them, you don't quite like this, but what else do you have? You know, this is where they will work with you. And, you know, if you don't quite agree with some of the notes, they'll show you something that's amazing. Like you always tell them, I want the best smelling scent in the world. And they'll show you something. They'll pull some stuff out that'll blow you away. I mean, a lot of times department stores tend to sell what, you know, a lot of subtle, common smelling scents. You know, it's all basically, you know, a lot of celebrity scents, which tend to be very expensive. And they tend, you know, some of them are good and some of them are just another, you know, department store gimmick, you know, and they're just for a celebrity make more money. So you want to basically decide which you like better and what brings out your mood. And another thing with choosing cologne too, it's really important is you find something that fits your personality. Like, you know, all these colognes will market themselves saying, oh, this is a sensual, sexy smell. This will help single guys. No, in some cases it's the opposite. And it makes people 10 times it makes people creepy, you know, and it's like too much. Whereas you want to find something that smells great. And then, you know, it ups your mood, and, you know, if you go to class or wherever, you know, it creates a nice atmosphere. And, like, one of the best scents out there is Carlos Santana, because, I mean, he didn't even need to make a cologne, but he basically combined two masterful scents, which are Jean Paul Gaultier, Le Mallet, and John Varvatos, but then he added more to it, and the top has more notes than most colognes dry downs. And then as it morphs in your skin, it becomes a great smell. And that's basically, by far, I mean, that stuff, people on the internet rave about it, and it's not selling. So it's definitely a good smell if you want to stand out. It's a nice dry down that really takes good care of the customers. And basically, a lot of times you want to look at which scents really stand out and which scents really are the best buy for your money, because you can easily spend a lot of money just buying a lot of stuff and then it smells like everything else you have and you get sick of it. And a lot of times scents tend to copy. Like, what you also want to do is, just because the scent's old doesn't mean it's bad. Like, in the 70s and 80s, you had a lot of woodsy Chapeur scents. And then they started to, then in the 90s is basically when the aquatic came out. They kind of copied after Coolwater. It was made right before 1990, but, kind of started that aquatic trend. You had Acqua di Gio, and you also had Issey Miyake, and you had all these Coolwater varieties, and you had Chrome, which is like a citrus fruity kind of scent in the 90s. It started that whole fresh thing. But now what they do is they build on that. Like, now it's all Foger. And they build it into a Foger in the early 2000s, and now it's more of an Oriental Foger because people are putting more exotic notes and spiking up their juices, and they're putting a lot more sensual stuff into it. And colognes aren't all in one category anymore because you have all different notes balanced out in a good cologne. So it's not just citrusy or woodsy or Oriental or whatever. It's a combination, and it can smell different in different people. So you really want to give it the chance to work on you and decide if it works. And basically, another thing, like when I look for colognes, there's certain stuff that's a hit or miss. Like, I don't know why people put anise in scents. It's, kind of a candy smell. I don't know. In a lot of situations, it's a hit or miss. And it kind of messes a lot of scent. And another thing I look out for is lavender. Like, lavender can smell soothing, but in some colognes, it's way too strong and way too chemical, and it really can give a harsh smell. And the same thing with black pepper. And the same thing, especially with amber and musk and tonka bean. They can quickly sweeten up a scent, and sometimes they make it so overpowering. It's strong, because the amber is what really sweetens it and makes it warm. And in some cases, it can become a pungent cloud that just, that just overpowers everything. So a good cologne basically balances it out. And a good cologne will take notes and they balance them so well together that they all work perfectly. And they give a great smell that's almost unproducible. And nobody can copy the way they do. And that's one of the keys. And like with Jean Paul Gaultier, a lot of people have copied that scent. And a lot of people have made copies. And some of the copies are good and some of the copies are kind of cheap. And, they're not that great. It just depends on who's doing that. And the same thing like Polo Blue, on the other hand. It has a great scent, but it doesn't quite last so long. And that gets down to another issue. Like, certain companies can go out there and they make a lot of scents that have a certain amount of staying power, and then all of a sudden they make a really fresh, subtle kind of scent that doesn't last. And you got to look at who's the perfumer making a lot of these scents, because some people will go out there and they'll have one guy making all their scents, and he may be really good at making Oriental scents, and he may have made amazing smelling scents, but then he starts to try and do an aquatic, or he tries to do some citrus one, and he just doesn't quite cut it compared to somebody else. So you basically want to look at talent and find who's the absolute best person to be making your scents, because you're going to have a few hours of use, and you wouldn't want to buy something and put it on and think, wait a minute, I wish I bought this or that. You want, like Roach's Man is always going to be a masterful scent. Zeno Davidoff, same way. They dry down amazing. And there's always going to be so many people that like them. And they're definitely highly recommended scents because they have very good dry downs. And even like the Gucci, same way. They have tobacco in their dry down and musk and a lot of that stuff. But they balance it out with so much other stuff that they make it work. Whereas if you had a tobacco scent, whereas some scents like Dirty English, on the other hand, can be kind of overpowering and harsh smelling. It works in some people and it doesn't on others. So The most important thing is that you find something that fits you. And you always want to look in your collection and make sure that you're not buying something that smells exactly like something you already have. You want to have an assortment. Like, it's good to have some aquatics. Like maybe an Issey Miyake is kind of has some sour notes and is a little bit more woodsy and spicy than Acqua di Gio. And then Cool Water, on the other hand, has a lot more of the water smell to it, like aquatic. And Cool Water Game has more of a melon, kind of a fruity smell to it. And if you're gonna do fruity colognes, you want different types of fruity smells. Like some of them have berry, like raspberry is really common now, and melon and mango and papaya. And some even have like star fruit and prickly pear. I mean, they're putting everything in cologne these days. And when it comes to Oriental scents, that's one of my favorite. That's where you have all kinds of assortment. You have so many different types of Oriental scents. Like you have some that have vanilla, chocolate, coffee, and you have musk. And some of them are more of a sensual, kind of Far East, patchouli, musk, sandalwood medley, and some of them are more of a gourmand. You have food notes now. And like Angel Men is going to smell totally different from Gucci Envy. But, it's always good to have a variety of these things. So you decide what you want to wear, and, that's more spontaneous than having everything smell in the same way. And another thing, like, also with woodsy scents, too. Woodsy scents are by far some of the best ones because a lot of them have a fresh, kind of soothing feel to them, but some of them can also have a smoky feel, too. So you always want to test the woodsy ones too. I mean, woodsy ones are always great to have in a collection, and a lot of times they can be in any category because you have some woodsy notes, and then you can have some fruity and spicy and citrusy notes that just balance it all out. So you basically want to have a little bit of everything in a collection. And basically, like if you're going to work, you don't want to be wearing something with too much sillage because it could put people off and it could be off-putting, and somebody might have allergies. Whereas on a date night, now for that, I would recommend a subtle scent. It stays within a foot of you. Whereas if you're going clubbing, you might want something with a little bit of sillage. But one of the things that you got to watch out for is a lot of people can tend to cash in on stuff like Acqua di Gio and Fierce Cologne. A lot of that stuff is a victim of its own success. But like Fierce Cologne still is a great scent. But you got to consider age. Like if you're a 50-year-old guy, you probably don't want to be wearing, the cologne from a teeny bopper site. Whereas if you're younger, you probably don't want to be wearing a really spicy, much stronger, more refined scent. You might want to wear something that's a little more energetic, a little more fresh. So it just depends on the person. And basically, if you find the right cologne, you'll be so glad you did. And, you just want to take some time. And what I like to do is go on some of the sites and actually look at reviews. Because some colognes can smell great out of the bottle, but people will tell you it just doesn't last. Or it just doesn't quite work. And if you're spending a lot of money, it can be a hit or miss. So one of the things that I like to do is I look for the people that give the strongest reviews and who've smelled a lot of stuff. And I look for what they like. And then I look on the internet, a bunch of different sites like ljshopping.net and Sentiments are the best places to go because you can get 3-ounce testers for like $20. And a lot of times they sell the harder to get scents that are better than everything in the department store combined. I mean, they are so good, it's not even funny. So basically, you want to keep your eyes open and you want to let the scents come to you. And, sometimes less is more. Like, if you want to go out there and get a lot of different scents, sometimes you can easily buy a lot of scents in a store and just spend a lot of money. But sometimes just that one scent can blow everything else out of the water. So always keep your eyes open. And I hope you enjoyed watching.